While the world focuses on Putin's war in Ukraine, closer to home, Chinese President Xi Jinping yesterday warned of, quote, dangerous storms ahead as he reaffirmed China's resolve to use all measures necessary to seize Taiwan in a defiance speech given days before he begins an historic third five-year term in power. The language at the 20th Communist Party Congress was uncompromising, with a warning for the US in which Xi denounced foreign interference for exacerbating tensions. He said, and I quote, "The Taiwan issue is China's own problem to solve." Michael Shoebridge, Director of Strategic Insights Australia, joins me live now from Canberra. Michael, that speech over the weekend, 2 hours long. Yes, it has all the usual Chinese leaders' theatre, high on rhetoric, plenty of threats, but it was also a very clear demonstration of Xi's dominance inside the party. And the point too, and I'd like you to touch on this historic third five-year term, you watched it. What's your analysis?
Well, Peter, I think you've got the central point right, that this is about Xi having cemented his power inside the party, and there's now no challenge to him continuing for 5 more years as General Secretary, and probably until he dies in that role. Anyone that thought we'd get a softening of his authoritarian hardline policies in this next term already looks naive. He's doubled down on everything. China's aggression, its militarisation, even the COVID zero policy that he's got that's inflicting enormous economic damage and suffering on the Chinese people. Xi sounded a bit like Margaret Thatcher in one way, you know, that famous line about her being the lady's not for turning. Well, neither is Xi.
It's interesting. I read some analysis that Premier Li Keqiang is going to go, that there'll be other movement around the senior ranks of the Xi team, President Xi's team. We know last month we had 4 high-ranking Chinese police officials sentenced to pretty long prison terms, 3 of them accused of opposing Xi Jinping. Is there some sort of purge going on?
Well, he's done rolling purges over his 10 years, and he's going to keep doing that. One of the methods he learned from Stalin and Lenin is to keep purging those who would be a threat to you. So he'll keep purging the party. There will be no clear successor. It's all about cementing his control. But people will look at the other appointments to say, are there prospects of change? Is this an opportunity to reset the relationship? No. We're facing a belligerent, aggressive, resentful China, and that's because it mirrors the insecurities, resentments and aggression of Xi.
Hey, some strong language too last week in Washington at Georgetown University from Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor to President Joe Biden. Has America, you think, woken up now to the China threat?
Yes, and I think that's one of Xi's biggest failures over his last 10 years. Before he took over, China was growing its power. They were hiding and biding, to use a Deng line. He's now made China an overt threat. So it's seen as a threat in the Indo-Pacific, our part of the world, and increasingly seen as a threat in Europe. That's one of Xi's biggest failures. And his other big failure is making China a far riskier place to engage with economically. So we're seeing that response from the US, we're seeing it from Europe, and we've seen it in Australian policy too. There'll be more of that over this next 5 years.
Oh, Michael Shoebridge, it sounds like it's a pretty tough, rocky period ahead. Thank you for your time.